G'day again everyone, welcome back to the vlog. It is almost 8 p.m. on a Thursday evening, which is a lot of a later start for me. Usually try and get out of the house by 3:30, but we're already in the city. I've just left Crown. I did play a session of 2-5 there, but that's not what we're focusing on tonight for the vlog. We're going to yet another Melbourne home game tonight. I actually got invited to this game off of the last home game that I played. Now going up to play a 2-5 game with a $1,000 buy-in, so a bit of higher stakes there for this game. Bit of a stroll to the home game, so I thought, you know what, I just played a session of 2-5. I played one particularly interesting hand, so I might as well take this opportunity to discuss the hand with you guys. So I'm on the button with Queen 4 of hearts, and I raised to 15. This is a bit of a looser open, but I am on the button, so if the hand does go post-flop, I'm going to get to play in position. And also, when I raise, I give myself the opportunity to take down the blinds pre-flop, which is also nice. So I raise 15, the small blind folds and the big blind calls. So we heads up to a flop, King, Queen, 6, rainbow. And then here's where things get interesting. The big blind actually decides to lead out 15. So the action's on me. I don't think I have any decision but to just call here. I think if I raise, I'm only going to get action from better hands, and obviously with middle pair here, I could definitely have the best hand. So I'm definitely not folding, definitely not raising. I call. We still heads up to the turn. Turn's a good one. It is the 4 of clubs. Then the big blind goes ahead and bets 15 yet again. So when he bets this smaller sizing, I think it could be pretty indicative of a not very strong hand. So maybe like he has a king with a really weak kicker. He has a straight draw like Jack 10 or Ace Jack, 10 Jack, also possible. And maybe he backdoor clubs, but I think if he did backdoor clubs, he would probably size up a bit. But whatever the case, I do turn 2 pair. I think this is a really good spot where I'm going to want to raise for value. To get called by some of those draws. If he does have a worse king, well, a weak king I should say, I think I can get action from that hand too. So raise it up here, I make it 55, and then the big blind calls. So we are still heads up to the river, and the river is the 9 of diamonds. Now here's where things get really interesting, and this was a really gross spot that I did put up on Instagram for you guys. So if you follow me on Instagram, you already know what happens. But the big blind goes all in for 315 into like $150 pot. And my initial thought is like, I don't know what to do here, but I am very, very concerned that you play Jack 10 like this, and now you've rivered the nuts, and now you're going for max value. That makes a lot of sense. And then I'm like, okay, but maybe he's bluffing. What hands are he bluffing with? Well, backdoor clubs missed, right? But I already said on the turn that I think if he did backdoor a club draw, he's probably just going to... He's going to bet bigger than like the tiny $15 bet, because he has more equity, right? So I think he has a club as a bluff. All the draws got in. Even if he did have like King 9 or Queen 9 and he played it like this, like his river 2 pair now, he might be betting for value with that. So I just look at all the hands in his range. I really don't think I can beat any of them. Maybe some like goofball Ace 10 offsuit bluff, but not really expecting to see that hand if I called here. So I do go ahead and fold the 2 pair. So gonna lose that hand, but I'm pretty happy with the fold. I don't think my opponent had a worse hand here. I can't even think of a bluff, so I think it was a good spot to make the fold with 2 pair. But that's enough about the 2-5 game that we played at Crown. We're now going to the home game to play a bigger 2-5, so let's go. Hey there, it is about midnight here in Melbourne. I am leaving the home game currently. Ended up wrapping it up pretty quick. Only had about a 3-hour session at the home game, but even still, played plenty of big hands. There was lots of action and some hands that I think you guys will like as I go over them. G'day everyone, it's currently one day removed from the home game I played last night, which was the 2-5. It was playing short-handed for the most part. I think we were 7-handed at one point, but most of these hands are going to be from when we were 5-handed or 6-handed. So definitely when you're playing short-handed, that's going to up the aggression. There's going to be more 3-bets, and as a result there's going to be more 4-bets. So even though we did only play for about 3 hours at the home game, we did get plenty of interesting hands in with a lot of aggression, so we'll hop right into them now. So I have Queen Jack of diamonds in the big blind. The action folds to the button, who opens up for 15. Then the small blind folds, so it's on me, and I decide to just call, which I think is a mistake. In this spot, Queen Jack is going to be way ahead of the button's opening range, so I definitely want to go ahead and 3-bet for value pretty much every time with Queen Jack suited here, so I do make the mistake of just calling. At least I didn't fold though. Folding would obviously be the worst play, but we are heads up to a flop. The flop is King 10-6 with 2 clubs and 1 diamond. So we do have the backdoor flush draw in addition to our open-ended straight draw. I go ahead and check it to the pre-flop aggressor, who bets 15. And the action's back on me. I have the choice between check raising or just calling. I went ahead and just called here. Obviously, I have a lot of outs with my open-ended straight draw, and I do think calling can be good sometimes when I turn an ace. Obviously, that's going to be good because I have the nuts, but I think the button's going to be betting a lot of ace-high hands, and there's definitely some implied odds when they turn top pair, and then we can check raise and expect to get called, potentially. So that's why I just called. I think check raising is a bit better here. I think we can credibly represent a lot of strong hands on this board. King 10 offsuit, we're going to call in the big blind. 10-6 suited, pocket sixes are all hands we could definitely credibly represent here with the Queen Jack. So I think if I had the decision back, I would check raise, but I did call as played, and we are heads up to the turn still, which is the 7 of diamonds. So pretty good card for us. We do turn the flush draw in addition to our open ender. I go ahead and check it to the aggressor, and then he bets 40. So now the action's back on me, and I have the same choice I had on the flop. Do I want to check raise here as a semi-bluff, or do I want to just call again? And this time I actually do decide to go ahead with the check raise. I make it 130. Obviously, if my opponent is going to bet fold a 1-pair hand, I'm very happy to win with queen high. But even if I do get called here, obviously I have a lot of outs to improve against a lot of the hands in my opponent's range. Like if they do have king jack, king queen, ace king, or pocket aces, obviously I have a lot of outs to improve against those hands. So even if we get called, it's not a disaster here. Having said that though, I think betting here as a check raise is a mistake, and I only think it's a mistake because it ties into the mistake I made on the flop where I didn't check raise there. Remember when I said I liked check raising the flop because I could credibly represent strong hands like king 10, pocket sixes? Well, now when I check raise, I can't really represent those hands because I'm always going to check raise those hands when the board's as wet as it was on the flop. Maybe I would mix in a trap, but like most people aren't going to expect that you're going to do that, and I think I would check raise most of the time, so it's harder for me to represent those strong hands. Maybe I could have a hand like king 7 suited, the turn 2 pair that I'm check raising for value. I could also potentially have a gut shot with 10-9 suited, but I think when I start mixing in the semi-bluffs here with my backdoor flush draws, it's going to be pretty obvious, and I don't think I'm going to get a lot of folds from 1-pair hands. So I think it's a mistake for that reason, and if I had it back, well, if I had the whole hand back, I would have played every single street difference so far, but I think as played, should not be check raising here because it is not very credible. But I made the mistake. I did check raise and then the button calls. So not looking too good going into the river until the river is the 3 of hearts. Unfortunately, we don't get there with any of our draws. The river is the brickiest brick in the deck. And then the action's back on me, and I have the decision, do I want to bluff at this pot and try and win with queen high? And I'm still torn on this decision as we speak, 24 hours later. Well, it's not quite 24 hours later, but later in the day. The reason I like bluffing with this hand is because I do not have a club in my hand. So a lot of the hands that my opponent is going to bet call with on the turn and then fold on the river are like nut flush draws. So like ace jack, ace queen of clubs. Those hands are going to bet the turn, then call, and they're going to be the hands that are going to fold the river most often. And because I have queen of diamonds, jack of diamonds, I don't block ace jack of clubs. I don't block ace queen of clubs. So this hand is good to use as a bluff for that reason. Having said that though, like I said on the turn, I can't really credibly represent a strong hand here. 9-8 is suited is probably the only hand. King 7 I could definitely shove, but I just think given the whole context of the line I took with this hand, I don't really think I'm going to get many folds for one pair. So I think bluffing's a mistake for that reason. But I was feeling gully, and I don't block the clubs, which is good, so I did go for the bluff. I move all in, and then my opponent, he snap calls. So we can't get him off of his hand, and then we find out I show my hand, and then he shows pocket tens. So obviously we were never going to be able to bluff him off that hand, no matter what line we took. But I think when you take into context of all of the hands in villain's range, I can definitely bluff him off some kings if I take a different line. This line, I don't think he's folding that often. In this hand, there is a limp from the low jack, then the cutoff raises to 15, and the action folds to the small blind, who goes ahead and 3-bets it to 60. Then the action's on me in the big blind, and I have ace king. This is a pretty good spot for ace king with all the action so far. Definitely going to put in the 4-bet here. I go ahead and make it 150, then the low jack, cutoff, fold, and the small blind makes the call. So obviously it's already a pretty inflated pot with a hand as strong as ace king. I'm pretty stoked, but even more stoked when I see the flop, because the flop is king, king, jack with 2 spades. So we flop the virtual nuts here in a 4-bet pot again. Well, not actually the nuts. We do lose to pocket jacks and king jack suited, which the small blind potentially would have in his range, but can't be too worried about the monsters under the bed here. So when the small blind checks, I'm definitely going to want to go ahead and bet for value here. Can get called by ace jack, pocket queens, queen jack suited, jack 10 suited. Obviously there's a bunch of flush draws, ace 10 of spades, 10-9 of spades also potentially. So definitely going to look to try and get some value here. I go ahead and bet 100, and then the small blind makes the call. So we are still heads up to the turn, and the turn is a very inconsequential 4 of hearts. So the small blind goes ahead and checks it to me, and then we started the hand with about 800 effective, so it's only about 550 left in the effective stack. So I think it might be a good spot to go all in here to try and stack a jack or pocket queens. It's got a hero call. Obviously a flush draw is not going to be that keen to continue to this larger sizing, but I still think it's good just to try and get the max from a hero call, just accurately represent the strength of our hand by going all in. So I think that's a better play. I decided to size down with a bet. I think I get a bit too greedy here and try and get max value from flush draws. I only bet 200, which is a pretty decent price for a flush draw to call, as well as some of those hero calls. But I think I got a bit too greedy with the 200. There's not going to be much difference between betting 550 here and betting 200. But I do go ahead and bet the 200. The small blind is in the tank for a while, probably like 2 minutes before folding. So obviously when we flop it this strong in a 4-bet pot, we're going to take it down. And we do get 1 street of value, and obviously happy with that result. Right, so I am in the cutoff with 7-5 of clubs. There is an open to 12 from the hijack, who was the small blind in the previous hand. I've noticed he'd been opening some peculiar holdings, and I'm definitely 7-5 of clubs is not a super strong hand, and I think folding would definitely be a solid play here in general, but against an opponent who's opening some crazy stuff, I'm going to look to get heads up with him. So I go with the 3-bet ISO. I go ahead and make it 40. Then the action folds to the small blind, who goes ahead and puts in the 4-bet. He makes it 100. So I think the small blind has been picking up on the dynamic that the hijack's opening some crazy stuff, and then I'm going to be 3-betting him with some more speculative hands like 7-5 suited. And so I don't think his range is necessarily going to be super tight in this spot. Obviously, if he does have a premium, he's going to 4-bet anyway, but definitely could have some more speculative holdings himself. The hijack folds, and given that logic, like, I can see mixing in the 5-bet bluff here, but I'm very deep with villain and definitely not looking to stack off pre-flop with 7-5 suited. So I sort of take 5-betting as a bluff out of the question. And now my decision is between fold or call. I think folding would be fine here with 7-5. Obviously, not a great hand that you're going to want to play in an inflated pot. But I actually do decide to call here. And the main reason I'm deciding to call here is because, well, there's two main reasons. One, I'm in position. And even though the pot's inflated, we are still very deep, and I'm going to get to play poker in position, which is something I probably do and care about a bit too much, which might be a bit of a leak of mine calling pre-flop, but that's one of the reasons I called. The other reason I like calling is I'm getting a very, very good price. So I 3-bet to 40, right? Then the small blind 4-bets to 100. So I only have to call 60 into play in a pot that's going to be over 200. So those are pretty good odds to get to play a hand in position, particularly at a deep stack depth. Maybe I'm just being overly defensive here and it should be a very easy fold pre-flop, but I actually go ahead and throw in the call with 7-4 of clubs, and somehow I have 7-4 of clubs in a 4-bet pot, and we are heads up to a flop. And I warned you that I run good in 4-bet pots. The flop is 10-7-5 with 2 spades. So we do flop bottom 2 pair, which obviously I'm pretty stoked about. And then the 4-better C-bets 100, which is a bit less than half the size of the pot. And then I have the decision, do I want to just call, slow play my 2 pair, or do I want to raise it up for a bit of value? And I decide to go ahead with the raise. I make it 250, obviously looking to get value from overpairs, flush draws, straight draws, also all potential hands on this board. And like I said, the 4-better is not strictly like has queens, kings and aces, ace king here. Like, he definitely is going to have some hands like jack 9 suited, stuff like that, ace 4 suited, just it could be a bunch of different hands. So I definitely am looking to get value from some of those hands here with my 2 pair. And then I make it 250 and the small blind calls. Cool. So we are heads up to the turn, which is the 9 of hearts, which is actually not the best card in the world for me. I do lose to 10-9 suited now. 8-6 suited is now straight. These are, again, all potential hands the 4-better can have in his range. So there is a bit of concern here on this 9, but when the small blind goes ahead and checks it to me, I only have 670 left in my stack, and the pot's already 700, and like, I think I just have to go all in for value here with my bottom 2 pair. I can still potentially get called by an overpair. Combo draws, like ace king of spades, for instance, they're definitely going to be tempted to call the all-in. Maybe they'll fold though, but I still think there's a bit of value. Mainly to just try and stack overpairs will be the reason I'd go all-in here for value. But having said that, bit concerned I might be behind, but regardless, I shove all in for 650, and then the small blind doesn't think about it too long before calling, and then he has King 10 of hearts. So not only did he flop top pair, he also turned the flush draw, so we have a lot of outs to fade on the river. The pot's already over 2,000 at this point, so me and the villain agree to run it twice, just not trying to get too crazy when the pot's this big and we both have like pretty even equity in the hand. Obviously I'm a favourite and I'm going to take this spot, but I'd rather run it twice just to be a bit safe. And then the first board is the King of Diamonds, so we lose that one. The villain turns 2 pair, gross, and he's essentially free rolling for the next $1,000. And then the river on the second board is the 2 of Diamonds. So we don't end up getting stacked there. We do chop the pot and both take our money back. I think maybe that's a testament to that I should just fold pre-flop with 7-5 suited here. Even when I do flop a monster like 2 pair and stacks go in, I'm still only chopping against like one of the stronger hands that the villain can have. So it's probably if it's evident of anything, maybe it's just fold the 7-5 pre-flop when you get 4-bet. I am on the button with King Jack of Spades. I go ahead and make it 15, and then the small blind goes ahead with the 3-bet, and he makes it 60. So I go ahead and make the call. Definitely some merit to 4-betting this hand because the small blind is going to be attacking my button opens pretty aggressively, but also pretty happy to see a flop with King Jack suited, so I do just call. We are heads up to a flop of Queen 5-4 rainbow. 1 spade. There is 1 spade on the flop. And then the small blind goes ahead and checks it. Now, I have the decision, do I want to start a bluff with King High, or do I want to just check back? I think there's merit to checking back because King High does have some showdown value if my opponent 3-bet like 10-9 suited, 10-8 suited, something like that. Obviously, King High's going to beat that. Having said that, though, I think my opponent's going to have Ace High more often. I think they're going to potentially 3-bet hands like A6 suited, A7 suited, and they might potentially just check those hands on the flop because they have showdown value, and I sort of want to start attacking those hands with a bet. Also, potentially, if he does have a hand like pocket 10s, pocket 9s, pocket 8s, which are always going to 3-bet too, they might check, and I'm sort of pretty happy to start aggressively trying to bluff him off those hands. So I do mix in the bet. I bet 50, and then the small blind calls. So we are heads up to the turn, and the turn is the Queen of Spades, which obviously, this is a very good turn for us. We turn a flush draw, which obviously we're pretty stoked about, and now that the turn's a queen, it makes it less likely that my opponent does have a worse queen, and they check called on the flop, which is great for us because that's going to be some of their main cooldown hands. So when they go ahead and check it to us, I think we just have to keep bluffing at the pot. Obviously, when the queen does pair, in my opponent's point of view, it makes it less likely to them that I have a queen, so potentially they might cool down a bit lighter with a hand like pocket 10s, pocket 9s, pocket 8s, etc. But I still want to try and mix in the bluff here. I have a very good hand for it. I do block Queen King, Queen Jack. Also, like I said, the board blocks a queen as well. So I definitely think this is a good spot to try and bluff my opponent off either an ace-high type hand or one of those 10s, 9s, 8s, etc. So I go ahead and bet 120. And then the small blind goes into the tank for a bit before folding. So yay, very happy to take down that pot with King High there. We didn't even need to see a river if we got there with a flush or not. So just take it down with King High, and very happy the bluff worked. So that was going to wrap it up for that session. So we ended up buying in for 1.4k, 1k initially, and then that hand we bluffed off with the Queen Jack, we had to top up just a little bit, and then we ended up cashing out for 1,686. So we definitely got out of the hole after bluffing off most of our stack, and we ended up making a $286 profit on the home game. So very happy to get the win in there for the vlog and for myself. That's going to wrap it up for the vlog today, guys. Thank you so much for watching again. As always, please comment, please like the video, please subscribe to my channel if you want to see more poker vlogs. Follow me on Instagram at LeadBets for those interactive hand histories, which are always a lot of fun. That's going to wrap it up for the vlog today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.